G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 209 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. My name, as always, is Adam Camilleri, as you just heard on the intro and all the other things at nauseum. You know by now, it's 209 episodes. Holy shit. But I am back from a return from Nova, and August has been a hell of a month. I've never before missed like 2 episodes in a month, and I missed 2 in August. So very much thanks for your patience and appreciate it. Should be business as usual for the foreseeable future. Don't think I've got any other crazy wild travel like that's going to absolutely annihilate me, because I went to WTC, got back for a week, and then went straight to Nova. So I was jet lagged as all shit. 3 completely different time zones in 3 weeks. But I am joined by, for the first time, 3 guests. I haven't done 3 guests before on the show. We're doing it. It's been a long time. First and foremost, I'm joined by a newcomer to the show. You may not be a newcomer to many people in Australia, especially, but his name's Reese Cunningham. We don't have an appropriate nickname for him yet. The Cunning one, maybe. There's many more unsavory ones we could say. But hello, Reese. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
For those who do not know, Reese is all 3 of the guys I'm going to have on WTC members for Team Australia. We've got a little bit of an Australian skew going this episode. But Reese went what? You went for 6-1 at WTC, mate, with your sisters?
No, I wish. I lost to Poland and to France.
Pathetic, mate.
Yeah, I know. Apparently Morven's whole unit can't kill a dreadnought, but you know.
Yes, I was walking around that game, yeah. And one of the coaches told me you were going down the GKs. I'm like, that's not like Reese.
No, that made me very depressed. I was on watch after that. But
oh, jeez. We're also joined by the man himself, the single greatest athlete in Australian history, Mr. Matt Morriselli.
G'day.
You did that on purpose because I gave you a great hype up. But moving on. Lastly, we are joined by the teacher without compare. His name is Jeremy Martino, brand new father, pairings extraordinaire. How you doing, brother?
Hello, kids. How are you?
Jesus. As you can see, I've got a trio of absolute miscreants on. I'm going to try and keep things PG as possible, but it's probably not possible. Just caveating that. There's only so much as the editor can do to clean these 3 up, but we're going to do our best. For this episode, we are doing a state of the meta address. We are going to talk about the state of the game right now, what's good, what's bad, what we like, what we loathe, etc. And over on part 2, we're going to be pretty much talking some shit. And I was the first one to drop a swear word, so I'll cop that. But off the cuff, if you want to join us over on part 2, come over and check us out on Patreon, Art of War Down Under. We're going to start with Reese, the newest guy to the team, because I've had Jez and I've had Matt on an absolute crap load. But Reese, current state of the game, how are you feeling about it, mate?
Look, it's not shit, but it's not it's not the best. I don't know. I thought that the meta was in a fantastic place until I played against Olivier. And 100 Crusader bodies is not a good time. And if other people start picking that up, I'm not going to be playing until that's gone. But other than that, actually having a bit of a blast. So I've got 2 events lined up the next 2 weeks. The OCC, which I know some people aren't going to for various reasons. And then we've got the VTC with these lads as well the week after. So can't hate it too much if I've got stuff planned on.
Yeah, 2 quality events lined up. Jez, what about yourself? How you feel about the game at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in a pretty good spot, to be honest. Like going into WTC, there was a pretty wide meta. There weren't too many armies that just you couldn't take. And the ones that you kind of supposedly couldn't take, like people are kind of winning with them. Yep. So a good example is Innes winning with the GSC. I'm not saying they're good as such, but like they're clearly not horrible. I think GW have done a pretty good job of getting the win rates pretty, into a spot where most things are viable. And I think a lot of like armies have several detachments, or at least 2 that are viable, which is kind of nice.
Yep.
So I think it's in a good spot. I also think that like the armies that tend to be skewed really highly in win rate tend to just be being played by a lot of good players. So like what we saw at WTC is a lot of the armies are like currently have super high win rates. Like they weren't necessarily hyper dominant at WTC.
Yeah.
In the case that they were, they needed to be paired very aggressively. So yeah, I just think it's in a good spot, which is we see GW reach this kind of stage every now and then. Like I think we saw it just before Ninth dropped.
Yep.
And it's taken them a while with Ninth, but I think they've got to a pretty good spot with 10th. Like I think it's been a while, but since 10th dropped, I think this is the best it's been.
Yeah, I do agree. It's the best it's been in 10th for sure. Solly, a quick comparison for you. Is the meta better is the meta better right now, or is the next best meta from now, which everyone is saying, is the hallowed middle year of 8th edition, where the last year was destroyed by Space Marines, but that middle year was golden, that middle WTC year. Is it better now, or was it better then?
Oh, it was definitely better then, right? Like that point in time was so interesting because there were so many viable factions, and there wasn't kind of this rock paper scissors thing going on at the top end. It was really, really wide open. I think now it's probably the best we've seen it in 10th so far, but there are still plenty of factions that are rubbish. There are plenty of factions you can't really take if you're going to go seriously and try and win a GT. If there's going to be a bunch of good players there playing the good medalists, there are factions you just can't really play. Doesn't mean you can't be competitive with them. It's just like if your goal is to go to this event and win, you're shooting yourself in the foot by playing demons when you can play sisters or T-Sons, right? So it's like, sure, it's fine. It's about as good as we've had 10th, but it's definitely not as good as that, that flawless 6-month period in whatever it was.
Middle 8th edition. Like it was it was WTC 2019. Chef's kiss.
That's right. So 5 years ago. Yeah, geez. It's definitely not as good as that.
Fair. But sticking with you, because you've been in this game as long as I have, was that middle part of 8th edition better than the best part of 5th edition, which is the next best golden age?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 5th edition was really good for what it was, right? But 5th edition had a lot of problems.
Yeah, agreed.
I think 5th edition, as a purely competitive game, might have been the best rule set, but it got very deck buildery, very sort of, combo heavy and combo driven. And that's great if you're someone who has, 20 hours to dig through, 8 codexes and 15 hard to find Forge World books. You've got to go download illegally somewhere and hopefully you don't ruin your computer, right? Like it's fine for those sort of
LimeWire strikes again.
That's it, yeah. Fine if you're a LimeWire wizard, right? But if you're not, it was horrible. And try to explain those things to players who didn't quite understand or they'd never seen this weird unit you found in the back of your shed that has rules written on some online release that came out for 6 months and then was never printed again, right? Like that had its own set of problems. Whereas, the 2019 meta, again, it wasn't perfect. There weren't perfect FAQs, there weren't perfectly written rules. There was still stuff in different books and there was still a bit of mixing going on. But it almost feels too streamlined now. It almost feels like it's too linear now and there's nothing formulaic to kind of like dig into and explore and find. And we've probably almost gone too far now in the other direction, which is good for accessibility, but it's not good for, I guess, depth and, like a high level of really interesting list building opportunities. You kind of, you're stuck to using units you've got in creative ways rather than writing creative lists.
Yeah, I get that. All right. So starting back with our next question, starting with you again, Reese, one thing you aren't happy with in the game at the moment.
The take you, I don't know. I feel like the Forge World models not really being playable is. I like when we have more models to play with, right? And they just it feels like they keep on like taking away more toys than what they give us. And I just really I want like that 9th edition where we can like even if we had just a few more units, just like being able to like with the enhancements and stuff and put them back on and relics and I just miss relics a lot as well. I keep on writing lists and I keep on being 20 points short and it's very frustrating. So, and I feel like the cores of armies as well have gotten like so streamlined at the moment where unless you're running something completely off the wall, about 1,800 points of your army is pretty much set no matter what faction you want. Like example with Sisters, you got your triple immolator, double or triple castigator. and triumph, and then your sources if you're not playing Morven, I guess. And that's kind of where my gripe with the game is at the moment. Everything kind of feels a little bit solved and a bit samey.
Yeah, and I think that also is a testament to the knowledge sharing that we've got. Like, did any? This is going to be a question off the cuff after I get what you two boys don't like about the game at the moment. But did it feel like outside of the two horde lists of France that anything? It's like every year WTC spawns a huge amount of technology, and it feels like this year spawned the least amount of technology I've ever seen. Would you guys agree or disagree with that?
I feel like 30 Naders was not.
He's referencing the Australian World Eaters list. Yeah, Australian World Eaters list. Spicy tech right there.
Spicy is the tech.
Jez, what would you say to that statement, though? Never mind. Solly, what would you say to that statement?
I agree with Jez.
Yeah, I agree with Jez too. He forgot he was on mute.
Sorry, what was? Yeah, no, like in terms of tech, I think it's the problem that it actually links to like my complaint about the kind of state we're at is just there's just not that much malleability at the moment. There just really isn't much you can do in terms of like changing your list around from that kind of core that it needs to be. And I feel like while a lot of the changes that GW have done like make a lot of sense, like the rule of 3 is a good change, and a lot of the kind of general, like you can't stack a warlord trade in a relic anymore. I get that they probably did that because it was creating too many synergies. But one thing I really miss is just the lack of unit sizes. Just being able to take 5 or 10, generally, it just means you can't scrape out those little nooks where you can fit an extra unit or two, or you can do something weird. You can't kind of take those 8-man or 9-man or 7-man units, just kind of that middle ground where it would allow you to kind of find some more space for other things, or like I just feel like the game is missing the ability for people to put their own spin on a list and really take ownership of it and make it feel like it's theirs. I think that it just impacts a sense of like when you go to a GT or you just take it, you write a list, it's been written before.
Yeah.
Someone else has got it in there, or hundreds of people have it in their app. Like it's a little bit disheartening sometimes when you're trying to do something original.
So you're saying it just lacks an overall level of self-expression?
I think so, and I think that the best way to fix that would just be to allow going back to just points, or because it essentially is like we're playing with with power level, and just going back to just paying points per model. It would definitely work with their app. Like their app's fantastic. It would work fine with their app. And I just don't see why in their field manual they could just have the number of points per model. I'm not saying war gear needs to be costed. I actually think the way they've gone with war gear is quite smart. Like just try to balance the war gear so the war gear itself is kind of equally balanced. Like a missile launcher is about as good as a las cannon is about as good as a heavy bolter. I think that's the right way to do it. But you could still allow people to take more variable unit sizes.
Solly, one thing you hate about the state of the game or dislike about the state of the game at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think the other boys have kind of hit it on the head. I think that the missing piece here is that GW just can't balance 1 million units on a points per model basis as well as pointing upgrades. So the problem is when you have free upgrades for everything, there are obvious best choices.
Correct.
50% of the time, and there are less obvious best choices another 40% of the time. And then there's like this 10% window where you can kind of flex, well, hey, maybe this weapon is better than this weapon, right? But, because of that, you kind of get what Reese was saying where, well, the obvious best choice is this unit because this weapon is free and this weapon is
correct
better than X, Y, or Z other options. That makes this unit worth the points cost that it is. So I have to take 3 of them. Because if I don't take 3 of them, I'm taking inefficient units. And then it makes lists look all kind of the same. So my gripe with it is, again, kind of the same. It's like the lack of personalization, but it's because they can't balance a game where they're pointing individual models and individual weapons, because undoubtedly we've seen it 100 times. A weapon combo gets missed and then it becomes the meta, and then everyone's got these units that are way cheaper than they should be. Now when they miss something, the difference is that everyone just has it. right? Like,
Well,
sorry.
It's very poignant to say when I mentioned the previous comment about like the one golden age we had prior to right now, where things truly felt relatively balanced and stable, was 5 years ago. It says everything, right? And what was the story for those entire last every other edition that we've ever talked about? And the one before that one 5 years ago was 10 years before that? It was in the middle of 5th edition, before Grey Knights and Demons. And like it's wild to say we've had these little snapshots of what the game could be in between ridiculous levels of imbalance. And just safe to say, like, apart from getting rid of like Wraith Knights and the stuff in indexes, it's been pretty steady sailing since. And that's because, they've lost a lot of granularity and things and that's because fundamentally, to your point, both, they have shown that for the better part of the entire journey of 40k, they can't balance the game. And so they are removing themselves from responsibility of balance by streamlining the ever-living crap out of it, for better and for worse. But I think it's just so poignant. Like, we can talk about like 3 golden ages of the game, and they're like almost they're half decades apart at least.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, right, like, there are pros and cons here, because really the big pro is that it's way more accessible, right? Like, you don't have to be that guy who's digging through books, like I said before, to find these combos, because everything's kind of right there for you, and you have access. Like, you don't have to, there would be times you'd play someone 5-6 years ago and they'd take a unit, but they wouldn't have spent the extra 20 points on an upgrade because they don't think it's worth it. Right, and you get to exploit the fact that they have been a bit greedy and they've tried to cut points here and there. But now everyone just has every upgrade. Every unit functions the same way. Yep. You can copy anyone's unit layout and just play the best unit loadout, right? So there are pros and cons. It's definitely more accessible to get into competitive 40k, but it's just, it's a bit more bland up the top.
I mean, we're talking about quality problems, right? The game has never been easy to get into, more accessible for people, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm assuming from a business point of view, that's exactly what they're catering for. Us, absolute thirsty top shelf boys who are just trying to get every little iota of efficiency out of every choice. Yeah, it's a bit solved. And to circling back to Reese, that's the word, right? Things get solved so quick. It's so easy to get a master level list together and then just play 20 reps with it, and then you're as good as the majority of players.
Yeah, well, that was like when the Sisters Codex came out, and I was terrified for like 5 days. And then, like, it was solved after that. So,
yeah.
And it was a scary 5 days, but don't get me wrong. But, that was... I mean, it got solved pretty quick, and then the list changed, 3 units?
That's slower than most. The 5 days. Lasted 5 days, hey, wow.
Yeah, it was a scary 5 days.
The blood on Drakari for a couple of days.
Yes,
Drakari was still cracked, man. That was good.
They actually did. They did surprisingly good at WTC. They did better than Eldari at WTC. Like, legit. Mono Drakari.
Where have we heard that before? What did I say? I think I said anyone who thinks Eldar is a good faction has dropped on their head.
I don't think anyone had less than a 16 in our matrix, right, for Eldar.
Well, straight up, a lot of the European countries were talking about Eldar being the second best team's army after Thousand Suns, and I was like, you guys are not correct. And
look, I'll throw the New Zealand Eldar player under the bus. I have it on good authority that he spent an extra week in Europe because he was too ashamed to come back home.
Hey, that man's a national treasure.
hey, I love Hayden, but I love Hayden. That's what I've heard. I don't know how true it is. But
all right. Circling back around, start with you, Jez. One thing you're really happy about in the game at the moment.
Well, I mean, I think if we step outside just the fact that the meta is really balanced, I like the changes that they're doing in terms of like the secondary missions, that they're really trying to make them more kind of interesting. And I think the updated deck is better. So that's like something I'm really happy with. I think that they're kind of including some interesting options to deal with some of the problems that we saw in the game, kind of in that previous meta, where you just saw a lot of people picking kind of homers and one other fixed, and it kind of was getting a bit bland. And I like the fact that GW were quite active in dealing with that. So I think one thing I'm liking is just the proactivity in terms of dealing with issues in a relatively timely way. Like, I think, Adam, one of the last times I was on this podcast is we spoke about that stuff. And I think you asked me, I think I said, like, I would like to see some cards, like essentially a Cull the Horde style card, I'd like to see homers nerfed, and that happened like within a couple of months. And obviously, it wasn't the fact that I said it. It's just the fact that they're actually being active in terms of working out what needs to happen and dealing with it. So the balance team, and I know that GW have like a lot of kind of private operatives now. A lot of the top players are kind of on their payroll. And those guys know what they're doing. And I'm really kind of happy that GW's actually put trust in the player base, and the player base is not disappointing. They're actually doing their job really well. So that's something I'm really happy with.
Nice. Reese, what about yourself? Something you really like at the moment?
I like that most factions, not obviously not all, right? But most factions have a game. Like you may think that you've got a losing matchup into, like say, like you may think that you have a losing matchup into Chaos Knights, but like I feel like at this point in the game, most armies actually have an answer to Chaos Knights. As an example, like you may feel like that you're bad into them, but as the games play out, you actually realize that you actually have more game into most armies than what you think with these missions, kind of like how Jez was saying. And actually, the missions give you, like, it levels out the playing field a lot more than what it used to be, where it was like, oh man, I'm terrible. I can't kill the Imperial Knights. I guess I'm just kind of boned. Where now it's like you sit across on the table, you feel that way at the start of the game, but then at the end of turn 3, you're like, well, actually, if I could win this like pretty comfortably if like this one turn goes right for me. So I like that.
Nice. Sully, what about yourself?
Yeah, look, I think the missions have been a big step up. They're definitely a lot better than they were before. So I think we're moving in the right direction. And that's obviously a good thing. I do think second turn is still way too good. Like I think it's gone way too far. I know that GW took a while to sort of figure it out, that they were concerned with go first win rates and did all this stuff to sort of nerf first turn. I think it's gone a little bit too far. But yeah, kind of to that point, I think that the missions are definitely going in the right direction, and I think they're nerfing the things that need to be nerfed. With a little bit more, I guess they're doing it a little bit more efficiently, right? They're getting rid of things faster than they were before. Eldar hung around for how long, right? Man, like, sure, you could argue that T-Suns are doing the same thing, but T-Suns are much worse than they were before, and they're actually nerfing the right things.
Yep.
The indirect torrent nerf was a really good one that a lot of people probably didn't even notice as being a problem, but in certain games, in certain lists, it was absolutely a problem.
Toxic, yeah.
So I think they're nerfing the right things, and that's healthy. Even if it takes them a little bit too long to do it sometimes, I think we're going in the direction where they're not just nerfing the dumb unga bunga, I go first and table you armies. They're nerfing things that actually need to be nerfed. So I think the balance is going in the right direction.
They're nerfing with foresight, and 100%. And that's how you can tell there's like quality people doing it. People, with their finger on the pulse, people who play the game at a high level. I'd like to echo everything you guys just said because I agree with all of it. Next topic, though, is just whoever wants to chime in. Post WTC, because of course we have in the whole world almost now there's the post LVO meta, and then there's the post WTC meta, and then we go to the post LVO meta again. It could be LGT now because it inserts itself as we have a little post LGT meta, then into the LVO meta, then a thing. What came from the WTC this year? What new lists, what new archetypes got added?
Who are you asking, bro?
Anybody, whoever wants to jump in.
The cultist list is obviously the big one, right? Like, that's the one that people weren't really playing before they are playing now. So that's, that was a miss for us. We didn't sort of figure that army out quickly enough, and we probably wish that we did. That one, I think, is getting it's not just good, it's good and people are playing it. The Olivier list is good and people aren't really playing it, but the cultist list is good and people have sort of picked it up and have figured out that it's good, and it has varieties. You can play it in different detachments, and it's good in it's good in 2 different detachments, arguably 3, but like Chaos Cults are still bad. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They're still not very good.
They did just win Nova, but yeah, fair.
Okay, sure. Like when they win it, then I care about
Oh, jeez. Reese.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what we were talking about before, like how everything kind of feels solved and same-ish. And you're right, like there's only like 2 lists that came out of it that are like surprisingly dominant that we didn't already know about. And Solly's right, no one's playing the video list. And the cultist list is like something else as well, right? Like as long as people aren't playing the 100 Crusaders, though, I'm happy. Like, I can deal with the cultists, not the So
And it's funny that people just the issue with the lists and the availability and the logistics of the lists and getting things up and running, like the hobby lag. There's so many. I know so many Space Marine players who just do not have the stomach for 100 Crusaders because there's but I know so many Chaos players who already have max Accursed cultists. I mean, I've already had dudes asking to borrow my guardsman to play as Trader Guardsman, and I'm like, no, the days of Loyal 32 are not returning. Jez, anything you saw, or any spicy tech that you saw from WTC?
Well, I mean, one thing we haven't spoken about is Dark Angels, and that kind of that got overshadowed by Olivier's list. I think if Olivier's list wasn't a thing, we'd all be talking about John Lennon's Dark Angels.
Yep.
Because he went undefeated, I'm pretty sure.
He did.
Yeah, but I think the difference is just that it wasn't. Not only was it not spoken about, like in the lead up to WTC, people were talking about the new Deathwing Knights and how they're pretty cracked. And that's just a really cool singles list. I think the difference is the Dark Angels list is just really good in singles. It's versatile, it's flexible, plays missions well. There's not too many models. Whereas with Olivier's list, it's one of those lists that really stretches player skill and forces the player to really demonstrate their ability to play the game, lest you look like an idiot and just run out of time, especially in the context of not being on 4-hour rounds anymore.
Yep.
So I think in WTC, it's definitely it's a bit of a special list for WTC. Cultist list obviously is really cool. Just it punishes mistakes really well. If you stuff up your maths or you stuff up your positioning against the cultists, you get massively punished. Outside of that, I think there was just some interesting. I liked at WTC the double knight list from Sweden.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, that was cool. I don't know how much viability that has in singles, but they obviously did very well. They were very unlucky to miss a podium, and they were from what I've heard. I mean, you probably know more than me, Adam. I'd be curious to hear how they were using those knight lists. Were they putting them up? Was that a first put up?
Well, they even more than that. They had a demon list as well, which was essentially a thick demons list. So they kind of had the trio. They were the other side of the coin to Sweden, who had the double and almost triple horde lists, and then Sweden had the double almost triple knight list. And so they kind of were the opposites of each other. And funnily enough, up until the last round, they were on the same trajectory towards the first place, if not for Spain into Sweden. And so, they were using them in a huge variety of different ways. But I definitely saw the Demons as more the defender and the Imperial Knights as more the defender and the Chaos Knights as more the attacker. But that was just from the one game, one matchup I was able to watch. But yeah, I was actually quite impressed with Imperial Knights, even though I do think they're not they are a lot better, I think, than people thought. And they probably will continue to do well. The only issue is they got absolutely nothing for the Horde list, freaking nothing.
Yeah. Another one.
Don't forget the Malta demon list as well.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a sick list, wasn't it, Solly?
Only graders.
It was one of the lists of all time. Hey, look, he was a good player. He was a good player, but all of the memes. He was a lovely dude and a good player.
So he's like the world champion of fixed objectives now, because his whole list was premised on taking fixed. And I want to talk about fixed for a moment, because that was the biggest change from the previous pack to the Pariah Nexus pack, is that fixed is, to all intents and purposes, I've still yet to take fixed in a game since Pariah Nexus. Has anybody been playing fixed, and do we think fixed is dead, is viable, or needs an actual little bit of help?
I got baited by it.
Yeah. Okay, tell us the story, Reese.
Again, against Olivier, I took the Cull the Horde and Assassinate, and he had 2 units left with less than 3 guys left and 2 characters on the wound. And it's just yeah, cool. There's, 30 points just chilling that I can't get for the rest of the game.
Jebaited. That's always a risk there, right? Jez, what do you think about fixed at the moment?
I think it's tough, man, because we all probably agree that the secondary deck got a bit weaker, just because a lot of secondaries just lost points that they would otherwise have got.
Yep.
Certain secondaries would get an extra point in tactical; they just don't get anymore. So, and a lot of the secondaries, kind of like a good example, like sabotage. It's not easy to do, but you only get 3 points from it. It's not hard to do, but it's not super easy to do because it scores at the end of, you have to go through an opponent turn. So you'd kind of think that because the secondary deck got harder, that the natural result would be fixed gets better. But I think the biggest effect, the biggest nerf was just because, and it goes to show how broken Homer's was before. Just because going into the middle and getting 3 points for free every turn with an upside of maybe getting 4 in your opponent's deployment zone was just too good. It was just broken. And as soon as you nerf that into just the current locus, it essentially killed fixed. And if you go back to the way it was before, if you boost locus back to Homer's, it will be broken again. So I think it just goes to show how necessary that change was. I'm just not sure what you would need to do to make fixed ball. I think you just probably need to add like maybe 1 or 2 more options in. The issue now is they're all mobility-based options. And the thing is, because they're all mobility like kind of options, like for example, the best ones at the moment seem to be things like engage is probably one of the better ones, behind enemy lines, one of the better ones. And if you're picking engage and behind enemy lines, you may as well just pick tactical and score every card you draw, because if you've got that level of mobility, you just play tactical. So correct. I just think that maybe add some interesting ones that allow a different play style that still aren't automatically, you just don't auto get. So yeah, I mean, another option would be, because a lot of people play around assassinate, so they'll take like only 3 or 4 characters in their army so that you can't pick assassinate and another fixed. You could change assassinate to give an extra 4 points if you kill all your opponent's characters like it used to.
Dude, you read my mind.
Yeah,
Continue.
something like that. Just make it more viable. What were you going to say?
No, let's all have his final take, and then I'll kick off.
Yeah, look, I think the big thing is the secondary deck got nerfed, right? And some of the to Jeremy's points, like Homer's got nerfed, and like it's kind of changed the whole landscape here a little bit. But like the really big thing is that you now get to redraw your secondary cards as many times as you like. And any army that has built-in CP regen actually gets to cycle all of these terrible cards out to the point where you're only scoring relatively premium cards. It almost doesn't matter that some of these cards got nerfed down from 5s to 4s, because you just get to go through your deck and discard all the ones you can't score. There's no more, blocking my opponent. They bring it down and I have no vehicles. They can't score it. We just get rid of the card now, right? So you get to go through your deck much faster. You get to cycle, up to 5 times. Now, cycling 5 times is probably very unlikely, but you get to cycle 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
That is a good point, Solly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I really think that just makes tactical so much better, because if you take fixed, like, sure, you lock yourself into your game plan, what you have to do, but your opponent kind of gets to decide how many points you score on fixed. If you're not playing something ridiculous like the Olivier list, where you've got 5 lists that'll give Cull the Horde and you don't have anything else in your army, right? Like, sure, that army gives Cull the Horde if you kill the units. It doesn't if you don't. But like, if they pick Assassinate and you've got 6 characters, and you just choose to not play with 3 of your characters, you just choose to keep 3 of them relatively hidden, you cap your opponent at 12. Your opponent takes Bring It Down and you choose to not play with one of your, more heavy, points, dense Bring It Down units, where you play really cagey with that unit. Like, you have this agency over what your opponent can score, and, you don't have that if they pick tactical. You're not going to hide your 3-man Piranha unit that gives up 8 Bring It Down points or 9 Bring It Down points, whatever it is, on the off chance they draw Bring It Down, unless obviously it's game critical, but especially not on like turn 1. It's 1 in 20, like, right? Like 1 in 16, whatever it is. Like, you're not going to do that. But when they play fixed, you are, right? It puts the game into such a state where your opponent has way too much agency over what's going to happen. And it's like, sure, you might be favored, you might play Chaos Knights, you might pick Assassinate, but it's like, you got to kill 10 of those things to get 20 now. And then you still have to do probably an action-based secondary for your second one. There's just not a lot of appealing reasons to play it. Now, in very niche situations, there are, like the multi-demon list, right? I play Bring It Down, Assassinate into that thing, and I get 40 points because just do, right? So the armies that just give, that just straight up give those like almost max secondary scores, they're bad. Those armies are are weak for that reason, just because they give your opponent 40 and they don't have to think. But anything that even makes your opponent think about whether they should take fixed or not, you should probably just play tactical.
Correct. That's exactly where it is at the moment. It's like if there's even a question, you just don't do it because it's just such a risk reward, which is why I think fixed needs to be buffed, but buffed in a very specific way that Jez touched on. So I don't want anything that requires you to stand and do a thing to be a fixed objective. I don't want sabotage, behind enemy lines, engaged all fronts. None of those. I don't want any of those to be fixed. I want mark for death to be fixed. I want assassinate, bring it down, and then like 2 or 3 other ones. And all of them require you to remove things from your opponent. That's all I want. The only things I want to be fixed, and I want them to have good score lines for them. So if I take bring it down and mark for death versus my opponent and they decide to not play with half their army because they're getting me up points, I'll win the primary and it won't be a big deal. Or I'll get 1 or 2 of their pieces, still get like 15 points and it'll not be a big deal. But that's what I want to see to happen to fix. Because right now, fix to me, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Can I offer another suggestion?
The other one is I want them to either get rid of the ability to discard a card when you can't score it, or get rid of the ability to cycle every freaking turn. One of those needs to go. It just makes the tactical deck just far too easy.
Well, you know what else you could do? You could I think there's one of the like mission twists is that you get to pick an extra fixed mission.
Yeah.
I think it could be cool. Like, you know how Sully was talking about how strong the New Orders stratagem is. You could have another stratagem that's like New Orders, but for fixed. So if you've picked fixed, it wouldn't be 1 CP. It would have to be 2 or 3 CP, probably like, let's just say 2 CP. And you change one of your fixed missions. Like, you keep the points you've scored so far for it, but you pick a new one.
Oh, yeah, so like an inverse secret mission. Mission you do for the first 3 turns, and then, Yeah,
like, let's say you pick Assassinate and Bring It Down, and or Assassinate and Homers, and your opponent hides all their characters. They detach their characters from their units. They don't attach them. They just hide them. Then you could, like, kill 1 or 2 easy characters that they've given you, and then you spend 2 CP to swap to, like,
that's
behind
cool.
enemy lines. Like, that could be ways to make it more viable.
Yeah,
on Battle Round 3, you can do it for free or something like that as well.
Yeah,
like, just something like it.
I like that a lot. Actually, I love that. Actually, that's really cool. The other one we're going to mention is secret missions, because we just segued into it. Reese, are you a secret mission enjoyer, and do you think they've been a good addition to the game?
I've done it once, and it was really fun. Poor Terrence. Besides that, I don't know. I feel like we were really hyped about them. Like, incredibly hyped about them when we saw them. And then games just don't play out like that. Like, you're either going second and you're going to win anyway, or you're going first, so you have that slight primary lead most likely. And if you're not, you're like trying to force yourself to be behind. So it doesn't play out that way. It's kind of awkward. But in theory, they're actually kind of strong, but because they're pretty, like, reasonable to do, right? Like, none of them. It's not like the old gambits where they're, like, impossible.
Yeah,
So I think there's a place for them, but I think they could be. It's very dangerous if you made them any better than what they are now, though.
Oh, I'm of the opinion. So the issue I have with secret missions is that there are some armies that then their natural build style, Thousand Suns, just makes them innately busted. Enables them to play pretty much a super passive minimum turn 1 and 2, because they always know if things aren't going well, they can always just secret mission Magnus onto your home objective.
Exactly. It's like number 1 reason not to take Morven as well, so you can just take Celestine as your warlord.
Correct. Yeah, and just yeeter on. Solly, how do you feel about secret missions?
Yeah, look, I feel like they're only really viable if you go second. They're usually a win more. Now, that being said, there are definitely some situations where they kind of, flip the game on its head and make it, really awkward to play and whatever. But, like, they're only really viable going second. Most of these ones you can't effectively do going first unless the board state is really weird and a bunch of stuff's dead, and, like, it's just one of those things that needs to go right for it to go right. But then when it does go right, it becomes really scary for your opponent all of a sudden, right? It's one of those situations where you've got to be screening 5 different things that could be happening. There's no guarantee that it is happening. It makes the game, like, angsty is the wrong word, but, like, it forces you to play really aware of what could happen. Yeah, look, I'm not a fan. I think that they just kind of like give they give people who have no right being in the game the chance to get in the game by doing a little bit or getting a little bit lucky or whatever it might be. I just think it's not really, conducive to a really competitive game.
So the biggest issue I have in their inclusion is just the mess they make of Team 40K. Where you have a very predictable, like, I'm beating this person thoroughly in every foreseeable way on my trajectory to a 15-5. Oh, whoops, it's an 11-9 because they got 20 points on something. The mess they've kind of made of Team 40K, I mean, which is, of course, not something that they considered when including them. It has been a little frustrating to me. But that is, I mean, there was a round of WTC this year where I think we had 11 draws. I can't remember if it was 9 or it was 11, but it was almost half of all the 20 pairings that were going on. There's 40 teams, 20 individual pairings. Almost half of them in a single round resulted in a draw. And I really want to know how many of those had a secret mission occur, because I think that was the Purge mission, which is, of course, Drawhammer as hell. But all right, moving on. We're going to get into our last couple of questions. One change, Reese, you would like to see in the next slate and or points change. One thing only.
Repentia to 150.
Never.
No, it's good, man. Like realistically, what? There's one team that took the penitent host attachment. It was Germany, I think.
Yep.
And there's just no point not bringing them. Like they're good, but they're not insane, and they're actually really fun to play with. But you just don't get a lot of models on the table, and that allows you just to take that extra bit of chaff by removing those points. So I think it's pardon?
How much are they now?
180.
If you guys didn't know, and of course you didn't because we were in the green room, Solly also suggested a 30-point decrease to a problem unit. But
problem unit?
Repentia are a problem unit. They can't see no model.
So there are 3 constants in every edition of 40K that I've ever played. At some point, flyers are going to be busted. At some point, pink horrors are going to be busted. And I can't remember what the third one is, but Solly suggested pink horrors. And I'm like, you're about to fulfill a prophecy.
Yeah, pink horrors to 110, please.
That is literally a prophecy in waiting. The pink horrors will be busted at some point. I think one of the other ones was D weapons will be busted at some point, which would have been devastating wounds, which would have been the Wraith Knight. Jez, one change you'd like to see?
Well, to be honest, as someone that's been playing T-Suns, I don't feel like I've got the right to ask for very much. I just think that, they just need to buff the, well, not really buff, but the units that are just totally not viable. I think they could be buffed a bit. I think in the last data slate, they made mutaliths from 165 to 150, and that was I was pretty ecstatic to see that, because they were already semi-viable at 165. I'd considered them and I toyed with them at that price, and then as soon as they go to 150, all these people just jam 3 in their list.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to see units that aren't even really borderline viable get reduced a little bit. Things like the Hellbrute in T-Suns is just not particularly good. You don't see much play from certain fringe units. It would just be nice to see them kind of made somewhat viable. But yeah, I think T-Suns are in a decent spot. I think all they need is just a couple of nerfs on the most problematic units. I know they tried to I'd actually just like to see the Infernal Master go up a little bit. I'm actually surprised it's maintained its price the whole time. Yep. It's such a linchpin unit for T-Suns, because it's such reliable damage and it's so cheap. I think if it just goes up 10 points or even 15 points per model, that would be a good change without needing to do too many other changes. So I think that would be my request, actually.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to see some of their chaff units go down. I'd be totally fine if they put up Infernal Masters, put down things like Zangor's Enlightened. To your point, they could make that Hellbrute dead set 80 points, and you still might not see them make it into the Thousand Suns list because they're so tight to the line on points right now. Solly, what's one change you'd like to see?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty in line with Jez there. I think we're in a situation now where everyone's using the GW app to write their list, which is great. But what that means is like collecting data is homogenized, and it's actually really easy to get like unit play stats and things like that. I think it would be a very easy thing to do to figure out what units aren't getting played, and then kind of give those units a bit of priority in terms of how they get buffed. I think we're focusing a little bit too much on nerfing the big meta bully and not quite enough on putting replacements in there, right? Like there have been plenty of times where, you know, the big offenders have been nerfed, but nothing replaces them. And then what, like all of a sudden you can't play the faction anymore? Like it's pretty rough when that happens. So I think we need to put a bit more stock into buffing things and less into just nerfing big offenders, personally.
I mean, I echo that. I think rather than always just trimming the top, I play Space Marines, and the gap between the takeable units and the untakeable units is so vast, so very vast. And so I'd love to see them just flesh out the usable units in the army. Give me a reason to take an Outrider unit with an ATV. Like, give me a reason to care about Storm Speeders again.
Outriders.
I love Outriders too, and I still have played them this edition.
I've never seen them on the table. Actually, once.
Was it me? It would have been me.
I think it was me.
I use a unit of 3 with Sammy, and I fucking that's my favorite unit. It's literally my favorite
Sammy
unit in
too.
Dark Angels. But we're going to go around again and ask for one more. This time, very specific. A single unit that you want to see go up or go down. Jez.
Well, to be honest, I've been looking like just to touch on what Solly was talking about with his Tzeentch Demon allies. I feel like that there are some demons that are just weirdly priced. Like it's such a weirdly priced index, and just there's some stuff that's really cool and it seems kind of undercosted. There's stuff that's just overcosted. I kind of want to see just a reevaluation of blue horrors. I think blue horrors have been too expensive for a while now, and I've kind of wanted to take them just because they're so cool and they're like a cool little infiltrating unit that you could use to unlock a Tzeentch demon character ally. But they're just like, I think they're like 125 points or something, just something ridiculously high.
Yeah.
I would like to see them drop maybe to like 110, 115, and they would be viable at that price. I think they're so much less survivable than pinks, because when a pink dies on a 4-up, you get 2 blues. So to start the unit just with 10 blues is so much less survivable than pinks, but they're currently like, I think 5 or 10 points cheaper than the pinks.
Yeah.
They should be a lot cheaper.
That's a great shout. They're like legitimately like 40% less good, but only like 10 points less. It's kind of dumb. Solly, one unit up or down?
Oh, give me like 80-point demonettes. Give me a demon troop that's actually cheap.
Two demon shouts. Nice. Okay.
Well, I think demons are the biggest offender of being overpriced, right? Like, so many of these units do nothing, and for some reason, you need to take a mortgage out to put one in your list. Like, why is half of the stuff in the demon book the price that it is? Why is why is a bloodletter 13 points? Like, it's just 14 points. I think it's whatever it is. Like, those units are just so expensive, right?
Ask Dean 14 points.
What's that?
Ask Dean. Dean can tell us why it's 14 points.
Oh, okay. Well, like, I think there's like the things that are too good are obviously too good, right? Like Castigators are probably too good, Immolators are probably too good, Dominions are probably too good. All those things are just like, obviously they should go up a little bit. Just, make other stuff in the Sisters book more attractive by making the obvious best units a little bit less of an auto include. But the stuff that needs to go down, like, I think demons are like some of the worst offenders there in terms of units that are just way too overpriced. Like, man, in what world are you ever going to pay 140 for 10 bloodletters when for the another 120 points you can just take a lot of change?
Correct.
Like,
100%.
It's wild, the imbalance in that book.
They are one of the worst internally balanced books in the game. Like, straight up. Why would you ever take anything when for like less 50% more points you just take a greater demon? It's kind of silly. I'd love to see a demon army that looks like an army again, and it's not just a bunch of chaff units and greater demons. All right, Reese, one unit up and down.
Hellions need to go down. Those things are unplayable.
How much are they?
I think they're 85 points, and They do nothing. Like they actually do nothing. Like they just need a complete rework. I don't know. They could go down like 30 points and might not still see play. Like
Yeah, the 85 for 5 models.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a
they're
yikes.
terrible. Yeah, they need to go down, man. They're more expensive than 3 grotesques, and I'd still want grotesques to go down again.
What are you saying?
So-
Are you saying that like 5 strength 3 attacks ain't cutting it?
What do they even do? They don't do the drive-by. They do the... Oh, they can fall back and shoot and charge because they're going to totally live.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
fall,
definitely.
Yeah, 5-up save. Yeah, no, they need to go down, man. Because I actually like the models. They just need to go way down though.
Oh, sorry. It's 3 strength 4 attacks. My bad.
Oh yeah, that's like killing, like wounding a marine, I guess.
It
Or a
is.
scout.
It's totally going to win. Marine. What would be my one?
Here comes some guard unit that's already too good that Adam's about to say,
No.
nah, needs to go down.
Taurox Prime.
The best is
Taurox Prime, 20 points. Yeah, obscure nonsense unit. No one's. I want to be putting. I want a reason to put Scions back in Taurox Primes again. I love the combo with the Primaris Psyker in the 10 in the command squad plus 5 guys in the Taurox Prime. I'm just not willing to pay like 300 points for it because it's just it's not that good.
best list in the game is a guard list though.
Absolutely. Well, that's our next question. Congratulations, Reese. So, the single best list in the meta right now. There's not best faction nonsense. The single best list. Hot takes only. Reese, do you actually think it's guard?
I actually think it's guard. For 1995 points, you get 60 Scions, you get 3 command squads, a tank commander with an enhancement, another tank commander with enhancement, and 3 Rogel Dawns.
Yeah.
Best list in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you could drop some of the Scions and just take 18.
You're not dropping anything.
If you like that.
Not dropping a thing. That list is sick.
Nothing gets
I'm
dropped.
furious. We begged you to play guard. I wrote this list for you 2 months ago, and you're like, nah, it's not good.
No,
Here
we
are.
actually
Best
I'm
list in
changing
the
the
game. Righto.
It is. It's sick.
It is pretty good. Jez, single best list in the game. Hot takes only.
I reckon it like I've got a few things I want to say. Like, obviously T-Suns are really good. I was really happy with the list that I ran at WTC. I felt like the Terminators worked really well in the list. But I don't think it's the best list in the game. Tomorrow I'm going to smash Lockie Callahan at Dean's place with an Imperial Agents list. I actually think Imperial Agents are really good. But in terms of best list in the game, I think you've got to... Space Marines have a lot of choice at the moment. I think they're very good. There's a lot of stuff you can do with Space Marines. But I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here and say I played them 3 times at WTC. I think that Mont Cartel are very good. If played well, I think Mont Cartel, if they're played well and positioned well with the right quantity of screening units, there's just a lot of damage that come out of those guys. So I'm going to say Mont Cartel.
Nice. All right. I like that we've already got two different things. Sully, what's yours?
Look, the non-spicy answer, I think Sisters are the best army in the game. I just think that
I didn't say army, I said list.
Yeah. So the normal Immolator, Castigator, Vile package thing, I think is the most well-rounded list in the game, the very standard one.
Perfect.
However, if we want a fun answer, the answer is 3 Lords of Change and 60 Pink Horrors, then 20 Blues, because that army can actually beat anything. It is actually good. If someone wants to, when's this podcast coming out? Wednesday. If someone in Victoria DMs me and tells me they've got 100 horror models, I will play it at OCC this weekend. I don't have the models. If someone DMs me, I will do it, and I'll beat Jeremy with it.
My answer is actually the Dark Angels Gladius. Is my serious.
That's not
serious
spicy. Where's the hot take?
Where's the take?
No, that is my hot take because you guys didn't say it. If either of you had said it, I wouldn't have said it. But because we have just so we have 4 different answers.
Boo.
Yeah.
That's
Dark. No, it's a company of hunters, max black knights. That's my hot take. Max Black Knights, command squads in all of them. Maybe a chappy if you in one of them if you want to be super spicy. That's it. That's my hot take. Yeah. Put him in Black Knight jail.
Reece, you have it on the list.
You want 3 squads of Pegasus Knights and a Duke?
I do. 3 into Wild Riders and Forest Dragon. Mate,
The Forest Dragon's pretty good.
it's pretty good, mate. Pretty good. That's a different podcast. I'll have to have you on that one as well, Reece. All right, gents, that is going to bring us to an end of this part 1. It was a good time. Hopefully, you'll join us over in part 2. It's going to get a lot messier on part 2. I'm going to let these boys just kind of go and talk about whatever nonsense they feel like, and I'll throw some questions in when I can. But hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this one. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy business as usual. Hopefully, you'll enjoy what it sounds like it's going to be me getting Jez on to do the Imperial Agents review with me, because I don't know anybody else is actually excited about that book, and it sounds like he's got something cooking. But thank you so much again for all your support and patience with me while I was off gallivanting. And yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy the song, whichever one it is at the end of this. And thanks again for all your incredible support. Anybody got anything they want to plug?
Grudge match on Tuesday.
Okay, no, we're stopping that. All right, the show's over. Good night.